Is that the question? Why haven't you were breaking up a lot, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying. You're asking why I haven't referred to the study Qur'an.
Yeah, and why refer to Ibn Kathir? Why refer to the other person you mentioned? But why not the Study Quran? The Study Quran actually compiles Ibn Kathir and a plethora of other tafsirs, and it puts them together and it gives a synthesis as it does the commentary.
So I will answer that question and then I'll ask you a question. I went on to Google on my browser. I typed in tafsir on Surah 434. See, I am engaging with intellectual integrity. Yes, I've listened to David Wood. Yes, I've listened, and I love David Wood. At least I kind of do. It's a love hate relationship at this point. But what's his name? What's his name? Sam Shamoon. I've listened to Sam Shamoon. I love God Logic. Um, I've listened to God Logic, listened to a lot of God Logic, and so I first heard about Ibn Kathir. Either I've listened to what's this guy that looks like Santa Claus, uh, James. I think his name is something James. Nevertheless, so I've listened to a couple. How would you would call them Islamophobes? I would call them some modern day heroes because they brought to us enlightenment concerning what Islam is. Nevertheless, when I engage with you on an issue like this, I can take a picture of this and upload it. I'm on Suna.com on my browser while doing some work here. I'm just building something for a client. And I see tafsirs of because that's what I typed in the search engine in the search engine window. Tafsir on Surah 434, and Ibn Kathir's tafsir came up. So now that I'm on Sunnah.com, in the uh, in the tafsirs panel or section, there's Ibn Kathir abridged, there's Ma'arif al Quran, there's Tazkirul Quran. These are the three. So I tried to go onto Ma'arif, but I think my internet was seemed to be fluctuating, so it didn't load. So I thought that there was not a tafsir on this from him. And so I went on to Tazkirul. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, but that is the reason why I asked you about those two and none others. I'm not familiar with the study Quran. I'd love to look at it. I don't really spend much time having these conversations anymore, uh, but I look at it to see what it says. But that is how we got here, my friend. It has nothing to do with David Wood. Has nothing to do with God Logic. Has nothing to do with anyone else. Sam Shamoon or anyone else. I'm simply going to your sources and asking you what you think about them, and you, my friend, are at variance in opposition to what is established, even though you say that you believe and agree with it, and that is what we call an internal conflict within one's faith.
Okay, fair enough. And I see someone in the chat wrote I'm this is an ad hominem. So I'll move on from this. I'll just maybe I'm trying to find different
What
ways
is
to
what
like.
is an ad hominem? Let me see.
No, I think they were talking about me. I think they said I raised an ad hominem by even asking the question. So I'm gonna move on this because I'm really trying to find different ways to kind of like communicate this. So let me try this way. First, I think I just want to narrow down what it is. I just want to clarify rather what it is we're talking about because I just realized that you and I could be speaking past each other, and I don't want to misrepresent Ibn Kathir either. So I kept saying Islam and the Quran doesn't endorse wife beating or like spousal abuse. Like it doesn't abuse domestic abuse, like domestic abuse. Um and and I'm not sure like you do know. Now I'm going to be clear if that's what you're saying it does or if you're simply saying like yeah, it does endorse like beating even if done like lightly or symbolically. Are you saying like it endorses like So I just Googled right now. I just went on Google. You can do the same thing if you don't believe me. Spousal abuse. And it says spousal abuse occurs when one spouse in the marriage uses physical or non physical means to control and instill fear in their partner. It could include physical violence like slapping, shoving, punching, or non physical acts like verbal insults or threats of violence. Is that what you are saying the Quran is endorsing?
If I'm saying because I'm trying to follow the question. You're asking me if I am saying the Quran is endorsing. I'm sorry. Can you just rephrase that? I was dealing with something here. Got a little bit confused with what you were saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to I just wanted to be clear, like that you and I are both meaning the same thing when we're so when I'm here saying the Quran does not endorse wife beating or domestic abuse or spousal abuse. You're saying it does, if I understand you correctly. And I guess I just want to know, what do you mean by that? Because we may mean different things.
Right. Yes, I'm saying the Quran absolutely does endorse, if that is the strongest word that you choose to use, wife beating. It does endorse wife beating. That is what I'm saying. It sanctions it, it allows for it, it prescribes it, it tells husband, this is how you deal with your wives. That is what I'm saying. I hope that there is no ambiguity to my claims.
I guess the it's not a real like ambiguity, but it's just what do you mean by beating? Because beating could because beating do you mean something stronger than just like, I'm sure you know about the hadith of like the miswak.
You'd have to inform me.
So one of the commentaries on the verse, I think when one of the companions asked about like what is this beating mean, like what does this verse mean, and he used like a miswak. It's kind of like a very like like a, it's kind of like a toothbrush. And he said it's something like this, like a soft kind of like tap. And do you mean, is that what you're saying the Quran is endorsing, or are you saying something stronger than that, like punching, slapping, shoving?
Punching, slapping, shoving may be involved, yes. Yes, punching, slapping, and shoving may be involved in what Islam prescribes when it says beat your wife. That is what I am submitting to you.
Resurrected. I'm telling you, let me tell you something. You know the thing about David Wood, God Logic, and these people. I don't know if this is like the same argument they use, but I'll tell you what this does to me. Do you know what it does to people like me? Is it increases me in my faith. Why? Because there's no way that you could make this argument. Like I can understand if you're saying,
I already
you know,
have.
the best way to make your argument. I'm even shocked that this is what we've been arguing. The best way here this whole time, I thought your issue was it endorses even a beating in a symbolic sense. And I thought you were going to say like that is wrong because it creates a kind of like a kind of norm, a cultural norm that will then enable like real physical punching and other kinds of beating to emerge. But if you're just saying like you actually think this endorses punching and like that's a really radical claim.
Is it radical when in my PCR I have a hadith on display where Muhammad does shove Aisha in her chest, causing her pain? And so your position is that it's radical, and I'm genuinely convinced that it is cognitive dissonance because in my PTR, Muhammad shoves Aisha in her chest, causing her pain. And you asked me if this is what we've been debating all this time. you were thinking. This is perplexing to me because you're saying that you were thinking that I was arguing that Muhammad says to beat your wife in some symbolic sense. Where did I ever say anything remotely close to that? How is it that we've gotten this far in the conversation and you don't know that I'm speaking about literal beating when I brought you a hadith, even though I didn't give you the address of that hadith, but we've talked about it previously about a few days ago, where I referenced it in this conversation, where a man was beating his wife physically and literally, so much so that he caused severe ecchymosis on her skin. So much so that Aisha had to comment on women being poorly treated in Islam. And you tell me now at this stage that you think that I'm speaking about symbolic beatings. How does that happen?
Yeah, because because I've I've engaged in this discussion several times with several people about like wife beating, and sometimes when Muslims and I've listened to many discussions about this many times. Sometimes when Muslims try to say like, well, it doesn't really say wife beat, and they use like that commentary that I mentioned, the explanation of like the person taking out a toothbrush and saying like, it's just a light beating. Many times the response to that, people in your shoes would typically respond by saying, even if the Quran meant that, that is still bad. And so that's why I assumed that was the position you took. Like even if the Quran meant something more lightly, you still felt it was problematic, and that it could enable all these other things. And I know that you use these other incidents of the Prophet's life and companions and so on, but I just I guess I'm just glad that I asked because now it's clear. But can I ask you a question? Considering that this is your reading of the verse, and I just want to, sorry, I want to look at the study Quran very quickly and just tell you why I think the study Quran has merit. So the study Quran was an exegesis of the Quran, but it compiles many classic tafsirs. And this work was done by three well-known professors in Islamic studies. One is Joseph Lombard. He's a professor at HBKU, Hamid bin Khalifa in Qatar, and he is an expert in Quranic studies. Maria de Cake. Maria de Cake is a professor, a woman professor at George Mason University. I actually studied with her. I took a Quran and Hadith class with her at Mason. And then another person, Kanner Dagli, who is a Turkish scholar and professor. I don't really know this person, but I know Joseph Lombard and Maria de Cake. And then it's edited by Saeed Nasser, who is another big giant in the field of Islamic studies. Okay, I know this is long. I'm sorry. Hopefully, this is useful information for the future. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because this was a massive and a big accomplishment in the field. And again, is there bias? Yeah, you could say that there's some bias. But the good thing is that they synthesize and they bring together all like different tafsirs. By the way, what's interesting is they also include like I think a Shia, they bring in like some Shia interpretation, I believe. So it's not just unique to like one group or Ibn Kathir or one person. And there's nothing wrong with Ibn Kathir. But it would be nice to know like, okay, if we have like different commentaries on the Quran, and you're making a criticism of the Quran, not Ibn Kathir, right? You're making a criticism of the Prophet and you're making a criticism of the Quran, not Ibn Kathir. So if that's the case, it seems fair to look at what a lot of different people are saying. So do you mind if I just tell you what this is saying and then you can respond to it?
Go right ahead.
So it says, and you can down. I think you can follow me if you want and download or the PDF. I'm sure there's a free PDF of the Study Quran online. So it's saying for the verse, I'm skipping because it's looking at different words of the verse. I'm just gonna skip down to like where it says to strike her. And it says, however, is interpreted such staying away from one's wife. Okay, so you know how it says stay away from the wife and then strike her. Um, then it says so the last sanction. So it gives like different sanctions. One like to stay away in bed and uh, uh, to admonish them, to abandon them in bed, and then to strike them. So here it says the last sanction is directly related to the, so the last sanction is beat her, right? Or strike her. Is saying the last sanction is directly related to the occasion for the revelation of the verse, as it was reportedly revealed in relation to a woman or her family who came to the Prophet ﷺ, complaining that her husband had hit her. So this last one was in related to the occasion for a woman who was complaining that her husband had hit her. The Prophet immediately ordained retaliation against the husband. So again, the husband hit her, and then the Prophet immediately ordered retaliation against the husband. And then this verse was revealed, allowing a husband to strike his wife in certain circumstances. And the Prophet aborted the retaliation, saying, I wanted one thing and God wanted another. And that is in Ibn Kathir, it seems like it's in Qurtubi, and it's in other tafsirs. Perhaps considering the Prophet's own dislike of husbands striking their wives, as suggested in this widely transmitted report, as well as reports indicating that he never struck his own wives, commentators generally indicate that striking one's wife is to be used only as a last resort. And some prominent legal scholars, including a Shafi, considered it something to be avoided. Some have indicated that it is justified only as a means of avoiding the more socially painful consequence of divorce, an interpretation consistent with the following verse. There's another verse afterward which talks about like the arbitrary and making amends, which stipulates that serious effort should be expended to try and reconcile and avoid divorce. This very quickly is the last thing. The commentators are unanimous in asserting that to strike here refers only to a moderate and injurious form of physical force without violence. غير مبارح. Using language found in a hadith on the same issue and without leaving a mark. This is based on a hadith that lists the rights that a woman is owed from her husband, that he feed her, clothe her, and that he never strike her in the face or mar her beauty, and that he not abandon her, save in the house. Some commentators assert that this striking, the striking in the verse, should not even cause pain. Ibn Abbas explained that it means hitting with a swak. So this is kind of what I told you earlier, a miswak, or like a, it says here, a thin, flexible twig chewed for dental hygiene. So it's kind of like a toothbrush, but even so, Islamic law prohibits injurious violence against one's wife, and some schools of law consider it. So schools of law consider it a legitimate reason for a woman, for which a woman can seek a divorce. So how would you respond to this commentary? It goes on, but I'll stop here.
From what you've presented to me, it seems as though it's consistent with some of what you believe. Let me ask you this: should a man hit his wife and cause her pain?
Hey, sorry, the question was a bit. You're a bit in the matrix. Can you say that again?
I'm sorry. Yes, so I'm asking: should a man be allowed to hit his wife and cause her pain as a course of disciplinary action?
I, I personally, so I think when you say should, I wouldn't say like they are. like they're encouraged. But I think they can be allowed, but I wouldn't say should.
Okay, so your position is that who is this? Who is this? Is it that the reading from the Study Qur'an is a collection of the three scholars that you cited opinions? It's their opinions collectively on Surah 434?
Yeah, and many more. So it says Ibn Kathir
Yes.
is one, and
Well,
Qurtubi.
let me say this in response to that. Then, Muhammad struck Aisha, causing her pain. Is he has he behaved in conjunction with Islamic law or contrary to it?
Yeah, I'd have to look at that incident and more carefully. I'm not.
It's in my PTR. It's not another topic at all. It's the exact same topic. We're speaking about the Sunnah of Muhammad, the actions that he did, and how he interpreted Islamic law. So I'm asking you, when Muhammad does that to Aisha, is he behaving consistently with Islamic law or not? Now, it's fair if you need to go look at it further. Whenever you do that, we can talk. But do not say it's a different topic because it isn't.
Yeah, I'll say I'll maybe justify why I think it's a different topic, because you see how I did had to do careful, like how I try to do careful analysis when I'm looking at a verse. I try to do the same thing with the hadith. So with the hadith, I'm not going to just like take your PTR. I try to look into it, look even at the commentary of like hadith, try to understand what the hadith means in light of like other hadith, other situations, the grading of hadith, of whether it's like authentic or not, and so on. So I do the same thing, just like how I do with verses. Um, and so I feel like I don't mind doing that, but I guess I'm just curious. Maybe this is related to the topic. I'm just curious. Like, are you saying that you would dismiss everything that's in this commentary because of the hadith that you have?
I would have to read the commentary. What has happened is because of because I don't have the study Quran in front of me, I can't follow with you. I can only gauge from what I recall that you said. So I have to look at that and see what arguments they are making, um, and how consistent those arguments are. As far as I have shown you, the hadiths show that Muhammad was complicit in wife beating, in husbands murdering their wives, and hitting his own wife. And so I think these the evidences need to be weighed in the balances.
So I just want to gain clarity. So and it's fine if you say you need to look at it. In fact, I can give you a few seconds if you need if you want to pull it up on your phone. I'm sure there's a free PDF online somewhere of the Study Quran, and uh, I'm on
And
page
you
4.
downloaded this from the App Store or from Google Play Store or something to that effect or not?
I Google I found this a long time ago. So let me try and see if I can find it again. I think I just clicked study. Okay, actually, I just clicked Study Quran PDF, and if you do that, you'll find something from Internet Archive.
I see. Yes. Okay. Let me
Now,
navigate to
now, if you don't mind, very quickly, very short. It's very short. I stopped short in the commentary. I didn't continue because it wasn't relevant. But I do want to read, if you don't mind, a very short paragraph where the commentary continues on this verse, on the striking, this the word on strike, to strike them. And it's something interesting about the study Quran that I want to commend. I think it's commendable. So if you don't mind, let me just read this really quickly. It says some interpretations of strike them right, to strike them, seek to avoid the sense of physical hitting entirely by invoking alternative idiomatic meanings, arguing that the verb can simply mean to leave the wife. So, you know, the verse where it says to strike them, some interpreted some people have interpreted that as to mean leave the wife. And they use other Quranic usages of daraba, which is the Arabic daraba, which means to set out on a path. Daraba fil ard, which means to journey. Such interpretations, but look at this. This is the Study Quran. It says such interpretations are not entirely convincing, however, since the wider semantic range of daraba, which is to strike them, they invoke, is activated only by various prepositions and syntaxes not found in the present verse. To use an analogous example in English, strike him is unambiguous in its meaning, even if strike a balance or strike a pose are other idiomatic uses for the verb to strike. Moreover, the occasion of revelation is widely held to be the issue of a man's right to strike his wife, and so one would expect the verse to address this issue specifically. It should be reiterated, however, that none of the classical commentators or Islamic legal scholars viewed this verse as a license to commit serious physical violence or inflict bodily harm on one's wife. And given the steps one needed to take before reaching the point of striking, it may be viewed as a ban on beating one's wife even in anger. So okay, now why did I read this? I read so again. I didn't notice that the last part again just kind of like makes the point I've been trying to make. But the earlier part I think is interesting because you would think that if I was a reformist or a liberal or a reformist or something, you would think that I can just jump on this verse which tries to avoid the meaning of like physical hitting altogether. And this verse and the study Quran, I would have personally thought that maybe they would have leaned to that interpretation, but they couldn't see the interpretation where it's like, no, strike them. Daraba actually means something else. It means leave them, leave your wife. They're saying that's not even convincing. That's not convincing linguistically. So I honestly appreciate their faithfulness to the text. And like I think for what it's worth is I think the study Quran is like I said, like I said, it's a big text in the academic field. And sometimes there's a worry that, well, the academic field, how much is it really being faithful to the Quran? I think it is being faithful in this case. So another thing, you could also resurrected. You could also look up their verse. You mentioned LGBTQ and all that stuff. Sometimes you feel like, oh no, these people are trying to twist the Quran and make it, not what it really is. Maybe you can look at those verses and see what it says about them to see like if it's really being faithful or if it's really like going the reformist route. But even whatever it does, whether it goes the reformist route, whether it goes the conservative route, whether it goes, whether it's faithful or not, I think we do have to reckon with the fact that it is a text that is academically verified, that is authentic in the field, that is taken seriously, that is mainstream. We're gonna have to reckon with that by like these are top experts.
And so your position is that their opinion is stronger than Ibn Kathir's opinion.
I wouldn't say like stronger or anything like that. What I would say is they it's like they bring in Ibn Kathir. So it's like I mean it's stronger in the sense that it uses Ibn Kathir and it uses a bunch of other tafsirs. But I wouldn't say like you could say Ibn Kathir might be stronger in some sense. I mean,
So Ibn Kathir would be stronger when he says to beat them, and you ask me why do I think that this is a standard interpretation on this verse in the Quran. Do you realize the issue that I'm having with what you're presenting? And I really don't want to to charge you with intellectual dishonesty, but are you being intellectually honest about this? When we've arrived here because you said you thought that I was arguing for a symbolic beating of women, even though I had already given you literal examples on more than one occasion. And now you've presented a view to me about Surah 434 and the questions from beating wives in Islam. And then I ask you whose view is stronger, and you say Ibn Kathir's view is stronger. When a few moments ago you were saying, why does Ibn Kathir get to define our religion? And so I don't know where to. You shift the goalposts a lot in these conversations. I said, I don't actually know what you believe. I don't know who you agree with. I don't know where you line up. I don't know what you believe about your religion. So much confusion from what you're saying. So do you agree
Yeah,
with Ibn
I
Kathir?
don't know if it's because
Do you let's go back to being very succinct and
wait,
straightforward. Do
wait,
you
wait,
agree
wait,
with
resurrected.
Ibn
I
Kathir?
think it might be a connection. It might be a connection issue because I'm not saying anything contradictory. You're asking me if I think Ibn Kathir is stronger. In some sense, I don't know. I'm not ruling it out, but I think you and I both agree that the study. I'm saying the study Quran clearly is going to be stronger because it incorporates Ibn Kathir. I don't know how that's a contradiction. I don't know if I'm not being clear because the connection. It seems like maybe there's a connection issue,
Sorry,
but
what do
I
you
hope.
mean by stronger?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I don't know in what sense you mean stronger. You asked me a question if Ibn Kathir is stronger than the study Quran. I'm trying
Yes,
to be.
that
Yeah, and I'm trying to be generous to you and say maybe if in some sense maybe he could be, but I'm saying the study Quran incorporates Ibn Kathir. So in my mind, it seems clearly like it's going to be stronger. I'm not ruling it out. If you want to say Ibn Kathir
I'm
is
sorry.
strong,
I'm sorry, Dawood. You're saying you. I'm sorry. You told me that Ibn Kathir was stronger.
I'm explaining that now. I'm saying because if you want to say, I'm saying if you want to continue using Ibn Kathir, I'm not going to stop you. Maybe I'm trying to be generous. Maybe in some sense he could be. Maybe he could be stronger. I would need to see evidence for that. Maybe, but it seems to me that the study Quran is going to be stronger. And I'm giving you. I'm not just saying it. I'm giving you a reason why. I'm saying because it incorporates Ibn Kathir. How is that a contradiction?
Is it consistent with Ibn Kathir, or is it adjacent to Ibn Kathir? Can you read what Ibn Kathir's reference says from the study Quran? Can you tell me what Ibn Kathir says in the study Quran from their perspective?
So the way the study Quran works, they will give commentary and then in brackets they will put different tafsirs that that would like support that commentary. And what they have, so I can, so I don't know if that makes sense, but I can't read out what Ibn Kathir says from this. But what I can do is like I can read the commentaries and then I can say like this was backed by if you go to the page, it's like on page 423, you'll see like IK, right? IK, Q, T, TS, W. These are different initials. IK is Ibn Kathir. Q is Qurtubi. I don't know what the others are, but I mean Z is Zamakshari. I believe it might be Zamakshari. So when it has these initials next to the phrase, that what that means is that these so Ibn Kathir and these other commentaries, tafsirs, they agree or support this statement from what the people are saying.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but I don't agree that that is true. This is the thing. It sounds like a group of contemporary scholars came together to revise. Ibn Kathir's position so that Islam can be more palatable. But I don't agree that that is true. This is the thing. It sounds like a group of contemporary scholars came together to revise Ibn Kathir's position so that Islam can be more palatable to society today. But if Ibn Kathir is read, Ibn Kathir stands in contradiction to the Study Qur'an, and that's why you protested against Ibn Kathir when I brought it up, saying, why does Ibn Kathir get to define a religion?
I didn't hear. Say the question again.
You protested against Ibn Kathir because he says to beat them, and the Study Quran is attempting to revise what Ibn Kathir believed and taught, and that is a contradiction.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You have to repeat your question again. I kind of zoned out. I'm sorry about that. Can you repeat your question?
So Ibn Kathir stands in contradiction to the Study Quran.
Does he stand in contradiction? I actually I haven't read that like Ibn Kathir.
No,
Ibn
I'm saying
Kathir.
I'm not asking. That's my position. I'm saying that Ibn Kathir seems to stand in contradiction to the Study Quran.
Okay, so I guess my question to you is so I read this whole commentary. So can I actually ask you a question about the earlier you said you kind of feel these contemporary academics are trying to make Islam look appealing to like to modern world to the modern world and everything. Then my question
Yes.
is they had a chance they had an opportunity. So do you know the Arabic word in the Quran in the verse to strike them, right? Do you know that word is daraba?
No, I know it's wa al jabruna.
Yeah, wa adribu huna. Um, so the wa adribu huna is so it's like a conjunction, but
Yes, it is
the
a
word so
conjunction.
yeah, and it's wa and strike them, but the actual word strike is daraba.
Oh, I
Daraba.
see.
Yeah. So other places in the Quran, daraba does not mean like strike. It it means something else. And
Let
they
me
could
let me ask you. Can I interject to ask a question about that?
yeah.
Does it always mean something else in the Quran? Is this the only place where Christians have supposedly mistakenly interpreted daraba as strike? Or does it mean strike anywhere else in the Quran? That's my question.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I actually I don't know because I haven't like focused on the word and like thought about like other
Well,
usages
it
of them.
does.
Wait, hold on. Wait, hold
It
on. Let me
does.
wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. Just hold on. Let me answer. I haven't thought about other usages of the words, right? But it was only until someone who takes this approach kind of raised this point to me where they said, daraba actually is used differently. And I thought about it like, yeah, because I know I have memorized the Quran where daraba actually means something different. So, and typically people will use that to mean to say that it doesn't mean striking at all. Now here's the thing. What I'm saying is these commentaries had a chance. They had an opportunity to jump on that quote unquote reformist modern interpretation, but they didn't. They said such interpretations are not entirely convincing since the wider semantic range of daraba they invoke is activated only by various prepositions and syntaxes not found in the present verse. So my question is, you're saying like, no, you can't trust these people. They're reformists, and but then why didn't they go as far as to just jump on the reformist kind of like interpretation? And by the way, this interpretation, I believe, is used by some even feminists, commentators of the Quran, such as Amina Wadud. I believe. I don't know that for sure, but I think I remember reading somewhere where Amina Wadud maybe had a similar interpretation. She's like a feminist, feminist commentator, and like a lot of Muslims don't take her seriously, by the way, because they would categorize her as being someone who's like twisting and like changing the Quran and all that stuff, kind of like what you were saying. So can you please answer that question?
You're asking why, if my cynical view of the scholars responsible for the study Quran was correct, then why did they uh, co-sign the conservative Islamic view of wife beating? Why did they go with the orthodox view and not a more progressive view?
Yeah, a more progressive view, exactly.
Yeah, is it that's your question, correct? Yeah. So my answer. Just give me 1 second. So my answer to that. Oh, this is bad. This is absolutely bad. Alright. I'm sorry. Just give me a second.
Let me ask
Yes.
the,
So
the
my
question
answer
maybe
to
more
yeah.
simply.
No, I'm here. Yeah. So my answer to that is is that the evidence is stacked up against them. They aren't able to they aren't able to go against the orthodox view, which is that wife beating is sanctioned in Surah 4:34. And to do that would be to rewrite the Quran, and they simply cannot do that.
Wait, so this doesn't add up. So let me just try retrace like where we are. So you're saying, I'm saying, look, this is what the study Quran says about the verse. You're saying you can't trust them. And by the way, these are academics who are well reputable. And I
I'm
told you this
sorry,
is a this
I'm sorry, where did I say you can't trust them?
Well, because you're
I didn't
saying
hear you
like
say.
you're saying these people are kind of like twisting the verse or trying to make it more appealing for like modern times. So if they're really just trying if they're really doing that, they have this agenda, then they're being intellectually dishonest,
Ah, I
right?
see what you're saying.
Yeah. So that automatically makes them untrustworthy. So you didn't explicitly say that, but that's basically the very you're strongly suggesting that. So if they so these are academics in institutions in the field, and this is a big breakthrough in the field, and you're so I just so I understand you clearly, you're saying you have reason not to trust them because simply because you feel that they are trying to make Islam more appeasing to the modern world. And you're this is not just a feeling, but this is based on your reading of Ibn Kathir, right? Now, when I ask you, but if they were really trying to do that, then why didn't they go full progressive? Like why didn't they like they have all the reason to use like Amina Wadud. I don't even know if she really holds that view, but let's suppose she does. They have all the reason to advance, to even insinuate, to even give hints that leans more towards a full progressive reading of the verse. But instead, they honestly say that's not a convincing interpretation. And your answer on why they did that is because they didn't have enough evidence. But that seems strange because they actually did have evidence, and and but then the evidence that they did have, how did they have enough evidence to kind of like twist the verse to be like moderately progressive. That doesn't seem to make sense.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that they don't have sufficient evidence. So they are unable to do it. And you are then in the minority when you, again, I haven't read the study Qur'an, but then you are in the minority when you try to just use that very word to suggest that it can be interpreted differently. You just attempted that, and I think you stuck yourself in the process. And so, or perhaps that was not where you were going with it. Perhaps you were always going to make this point that you're now making, and I interrupted you on your way to doing that. Nevertheless, they are saying that this interpretation, because many have tried before to interpret this differently, to suggest that people does not sanction white beating. And so many have tried before them, and they are saying that view is not convincing. So what view do they say is convincing? Can you tell me what the conclusion of their studies are? Is it that Islam sanctions wife beating with a toothbrush? Is that what it is that the conclusion of their studies?
Yeah. So their conclusion, they the contemporary scholar in the modern context, setting aside that they're iterated, meaning this is the thing they want to emphasize. It should be that classical commentators view this verse as a license to commit serious physical violence or not only on one's life. Can gaps lead to reaching the point of striking one's wife? It may be viewed as a ban on beating one's wife. So I honestly don't know where is the disconnect between you and I, because if this isn't sufficient, that's why I started about like what would be sufficient proof for you. Um, if this isn't sufficient, I understand you feel that you have Ibn Kathir, so you have everything that you need to champion your interpretation. But you see, the problem is that even if I showed you Ibn Kathir, or even like, it doesn't matter. So there's two problems. Number one, it's not clear if your criticism is against Ibn Kathir versus the Quran. You're making an argument against the Quran, and you're exclusively relying on Ibn Kathir, and not just exclusively, by the way, you're relying on Ibn Kathir in the midst of like other references, and not just Ibn Kathir, your reading of Ibn Kathir, because we haven't even gotten into like different commentaries, but your reading of Ibn Kathir in the midst uh, uh, of like other interpretations, other references, which all seem to align in one direction, which goes away from like the direction that you are defending. And so it's at this point, it just kind of seems unclear. You're saying I'm being intellectually dishonest. I don't know. Like, I think if I can, I won't think if I were to do that in, for any other text, if that would be intellectually dishonest. I've showed you different academics. You haven't showed me. You just keep showing me your reading of Ibn Kathir. I'm showing you my reading of what different academics have said, and what they have said in this peer-reviewed academic project that was a breakthrough in the field. That was a breakthrough in the field that comprises of several commentaries, several commentaries. I even pointed out how the reading, your reading of Ibn Kathir's reading, doesn't seem to align with like common sense. I don't think there was any principle. I don't think there was any like work done on your part to try and defend how this could even be commonsensical, how this could make sense. Even if you wanted to defend that Ibn Kathir reading, how on earth, like, let's be charitable to Ibn Kathir, your understanding of Ibn Kathir. How on earth could he have thought that that would have made sense? How on earth could he have? How do you think? How do you make sense of the fact that he would have been he was a great scholar and he would have come up with this reading? Now you could easily say, yeah, well, he was a man of his time. He was ignorant. He was a nobody. But that would actually be doing very sloppy work, because when historians try to reconstruct like the arguments of like thinkers of the past and so on, even when people talk about like how Aristotle justified slavery, they try to make strong defenses of why he would have argued for that. They try to make strong defenses for why these people would have thought the way they did or argued the way you didn't give me any of that for this. All you have is us. Ibn Kathir believed this verse endorsed wife beating, and khalas, that's it. There's no there's nothing else to be said. He just thought that, and that's who he was. But then at the same time, Ibn Kathir would obviously commit to the idea that the Quran is like rational, that the Quran is moral, the most rational. So then that doesn't seem to make any sense. So it does seem like you may say that I'm being biased, that I'm just continuously being committed to my view because I'm a Muslim and there's no way around it. Fine, I will even accept that. Sure, I am biased, and yeah, I already told you that by the end of this conversation, I'm gonna walk away and I'm gonna continue to be Muslim, and I'm sure you're gonna continue to be Christian. But all of that is besides the point. How do you reconcile? How do you reconcile with all this, all the things that seem to conflict with your point of view?